Welcome to Astrofic, your dose of fun, relatable astrology content where we apply astrology to fictional characters to find out why they're like that. I'm your host, Celeste V, and this week we're talking about Will Parry from His Dark Materials. Just a little update on my life because I wanted to start doing those. Make myself seem like an actual human being. It's the end of the summer, and well, not the end yet. It's still kind of like the beginning of August as I record this. And I feel a little disappointed. I feel like I didn't get as much done during the summer as I wanted to. Like, I wanted to start airing episodes by this summer. And that is obviously not happening. Yeah, it's a little disappointing, but it is what it is. We rock, we roll, we ball. So, I'm starting a new semester soon, so that's going to slow things down even further, but I hope that, as Maddie Murphy of Cosmic RX says, the block is the blessing, and I hope that all of these blockages come and I get through them, and the end product is even more amazing than I could have imagined because I had all of these blockages. I know I have like a few fans of the podcast out there, which is kind of silly and crazy. And I just really hate to think that I'm disappointing you guys because you like the podcast and I like making it. It's hard. It's hard to make it. I'm a one woman show over here. So I have to pick the characters, I have to write the episodes, record them, edit them, find people to be on the podcast with me, and then figure out logistics so that they can record. And it's a lot, but I do enjoy doing it a lot. It's very fun for me. So yeah, that's what's up with me. Thank you guys for listening. I love you guys so much. Let's get on with the episode. All right, so a little background. If you don't know, Will Parry is the secondary main character in the series His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. My personal favorite book series since I was a child. So, Will Parry is a young boy. If you've listened to the Lyra Silvertongue or Lyra Belacqua episode, I talk about him a little bit. Lots of spoilers, heavy spoilers. If you have not read His Dark Materials or watched the series on BBC by, what's that? What's the company who made it? It's like something Wolf or Wolf something. They did a phenomenal job, but they did a phenomenal job. He's just a dude for real. Like, he's just living his life. He has a hard life, not unlike Lyra. Um, a life affected by things greater than he could ever imagine. He comes about in the second book, The Subtle Knife. I believe we end the Golden Compass on Lyra and the portal. And when we start up again, we're with Will, and no mention of Lyra until he meets her later on. So it's a very I think it's a very interesting way to start the second book in a series, and I think that's why it captivated me so much. He's a great dude. He's a great kid. He takes care of his mom. He loves his mom. And if he likes you, cares about you, loves you even, he's going to die protecting you. That's the kind of dude he is. Big fan, big fan. He is a child when the series starts, but big fan. All right, let's start with his big three. Yeah, we'll start with his son. This probably doesn't come as a surprise to anybody who's seen the media. He kind of gives off these vibes hella. I gave him a Capricorn sun. He is just such a seago. I don't know. He's like hard on the outside, hard shell, but he's such a softie. He's a teddy bear on the inside. He is sensitive, but just doesn't show it. He thinks he has to be strong for everybody. A little bit of a sun. His moon is in Cancer. I couldn't help it. He loves his mom. He loves his mom. Ooh. He loves his mom, and she is loving of him when she is able, you know? With his dad disappearing when he was so young, like his mom directly and indirectly taught him everything that he knows, everything that he loves, um, all of his morals, his values, everything that he holds close to him comes from his mother. He can be so open hearted when he trusts you. I feel like the first few chapters, Will is very closed off even to the audience. And then he meets Lyra, and they, like, you know, survive together for a while, and he finally feels capable of opening up to her. And we see a very stark contrast when Lyra introduces him to Dr. Maloney. Um, and he is like very closed off to her and a little bit hurt by Lyra for telling the doctor so much about each of their lives and not keeping it private. Um, yeah, you know, I love the moon, so I'm always going to talk a little bit more about the moon. Rising, I gave him a Scorpio rising. He's just like so Mars ruled, okay? He's not as good as Lyra is at being cunning, but he can be when the situation calls for it. Because he's Mars ruled as a Scorpio rising, he also takes to violence quicker than Lyra. He he's very masculine. He has very masculine energy, I feel like. I feel like this is also kind of intentional as it being as like Lyra and Will are Adam and Eve, you know, they're supposed to be that anyways. So they both have very like different energies going on, and Will has always been very masculine and Lyra has always been very feminine, but I don't necessarily think that that is the case until they meet each other and they go on some journeys. I think it comes more into play after the land of the dead, like once they come out of there, and it's like very end game in the books at that point. Once they come out of there and it's like the whole Bible thing like is erupting kind of around them, I feel like those energies really come into play. But before that, you could say that Lyra had a very masculine energy and Will had a very feminine energy. Um, you know, Will was taking care of people. Lyra never had to worry about taking care of anybody other than herself and Pan for a very long time. You know, she was out to save people. It's a very like masculine energy thing to do, right? Okay, so now that we have his big three, we're gonna dive right into his first house because he has some tough placements in the first house. Let's start with the one that means the least. Not, oh, I can't even say that. It's not that it means the least, it just has the least effect because it's a generational planet. Okay, Pluto is in his first house. This is rough, right? He has some rough fucking placements in the first house, and it's in Scorpio. But like he is constantly on the brink of an existential crisis. He's giving, it's kind of giving like Percy Jackson in a way, you know, like they're very different in that like they're I feel like they're two ends of a spectrum. And the spectrum is having an existential crisis, and on one end is Finn the human from Adventure Time, where he's like silly goofy having an existential crisis, but he's like also chilling and there's a hot dog princess next to him while he's having it. You know, it's silly. At the other end is Will Parry, his Dark Materials, who is having an existential crisis and like kind of coming like just folding in on himself and being on the verge of imploding and just having this constant existential dread and being so sad and serious all the time. And then in the middle is Percy Jackson. He's bridging those two. That is Pluto in the first house. I feel like all three of these characters could have Pluto in the first house. And now I'm going to make an episode about Finn the Human just to see if that's true. Will Pluto in first house Scorpio. His identity is nowhere to be seen. He is a mold that will mold to almost anything if it means safety and security. His other placement in the first house. You guys are gonna think I'm mean. You guys are gonna think I'm mean for this. He has Saturn in the first house. Because he like has no sense of identity, he tries to have as much control over it as possible. And that's why he can switch it up so easily because he's in control of it because it isn't him. Um this like ego identity fight against this control that he wants to have is what causes the continuous identity crisis. He I love him. I do. I love him. He changed a lot throughout the series. Lyra kind of stayed the same. She just calmed down a little bit. Um, and then at the end, she was very, very sad. They were both very, very sad. The ending is sad. um, he will it doesn't know who he is. I know we're focusing on Lyra in the Book of Dust. But I would have loved anything about Will because I can't imagine how lonely his life is post uh, the Amber Spyglass. He's closed off to so many people, and I think that after the Amber Spyglass, he's kind of past a point of letting people in. And now, like, there's an extra air of mystery around him because he's been to other worlds. The Scorpio energy is off the charts with Will Perry. But I couldn't not give him Capricorn in the big three because that's also very prevalent to me. Um, with Saturn in the first house, Saturn is the planet of discipline. It just is. That when I think of Saturn, I always think of discipline. I think that his control comes in the form of maintaining as much discipline and strict scheduling in his life as possible. He has a very strict schedule in the first chapter of the book. He knows exactly what he needs to do to continue to save face in front of his neighbors, and not tip anyone off to anything being too bad because he knows what happens when things get too bad. He gets taken away from his mom and he doesn't want that. Okay, a real doozy of a first house for sure. Now we're moving in order. We are going to the second house in Sagittarius. He only has one planet here. He has the planet Uranus, which is also a generational planet. His life is unstable, but it's due to really unpredictable events occurring in his parents' lives and his life. His dad is fucking from Lyra's world. That is not something that he can control. His life stability being what it was growing up is entirely not his fault and also not something that any kind of like social support services in his world, which is our world, could have ever like predicted or prevented or helped or anything. It would have been a shit show. There's something in this placement about creating like newfound freedom in the cycle of life and death. Like the fact, like it's, you know, it's kind of like reincarnation that he created from his own hand when he opens the last gate outside the land of the dead and closes all the other ones. Again, I would love a book on his life post Amber Spyglass. Like he's got to be so lonely, and he's got to be traveling the worlds like through dimensions to close all of these portals. That's insane. Oh, actually, I think the angels said that they would do that. Now that I think about it, then what? Oh my god. Wait, if he's not doing that, what is he doing? He's an alcoholic. He has to be. There's no way that all of that would create a person who has a healthy relationship with all substances. Um, you know what? You know what? That brings me to the next house. That brings me to the third house because he has Neptune in the third house. Neptune is the planet of substances. He has the third house in Capricorn. He has one, two, three plates, four placements in this house. Heavy Capricorn energy, I know, but I gave him heavy Scorpio energy too. Um, let's work our way back. So let's start with Neptune. Neptune is a planet of dreams and delusion and imagination, spirituality, substances because it takes you to a different place, right? It's all otherworldly with Neptune. Um, but in Capricorn, there's debate about whether or not um, Neptune is in fall in Capricorn. It's not, these outer planets are new, so there's not a lot of agreement among astrologers as to what they mean all quite yet. Capricorn is earth, it is very tangible. Neptune is more comfortable in signs like Pisces. That's a water sign and it's mutable, so it moves very quickly. It's very free form. Capricorn has a lot of substance to it. And Neptune is it's the immaterial things, it's intangible. You can't touch it. And so with Neptune and Capricorn, it really is giving the vibes of like dreams that you think can't come true, and things that maybe would be possible for other people, but for some reason you think that it's not true for you. And it's hard for Neptune and Capricorn to envision uh, dreams and ambitions that are out of this world. It's very grounded. This is where Will and Lyra like differ a lot. Lyra is very ambitious, very imaginative, and has such a spark. She can read the the alethiometer. She can read it because of her imagination. Will would never be able to. He's just not capable of imaginative thought like that because he's so focused on tangible survival. Even his like grounded imagination is helpful though. He's very good with strategy. In the very first couple of chapters, when those men break into his house, he is very strategic, and when things don't go according to the script he's created in his head, he's rather quick on his feet to think of something new. And he's also, this is kind of the Scorpio energy, right? He's opportunistic in that when these men kind of incapacitate themselves through his kind of Home Alone-ish tricks, he's like, all right, this is fine. When he kills one of them, he's like, this is fine. And it's very much the dog in a burning house, right? Where he's uncomfortable with how it turned out, but unlike the dog in the burning house, he is okay with this outcome because it benefits him. There's also something about this placement that is like giving intrusive thoughts for me. I don't really know why. Okay, so let's move on to Jupiter in Capricorn third house. This, the third house is the house of thinking and communicating, technology now too. He sometimes does not have any luck in convincing others of the net neutral state of his life. So, what I mean by that is that he is not very good at convincing people that his life is not bad. Not good. He just wants to convince people that it is not bad because they, like, people know that he doesn't have a dad, that his mom is sick. So he has to try really hard to convince people that his life is fine and he doesn't need to be taken away from his mom. And it's very hard for him. Jupiter is in fall in Capricorn, so it is not having its usual like Midas touch results. He tends to stumble over his words as well. He puts his foot in his mouth a lot. He's not great with talking to people. Lyra is Lyra Silvertongue. Her whole thing is talking to people. Will is the bearer of the subtle knife. This Ken comes with his own weapon. He is ready to throw down. That's his role. He's not here to talk. If he is close to somebody, though, he can appeal to them very well. He can especially appeal to authority figures. It's giving very yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. Like that's he's very polite. He's a very polite child, I guess. So he appeals to authority figures. Unlike Lyra, who has to she'll do whatever she wants anyways. But she'll like smooth talk her way out of things, and eventually there will come a point where she cannot smooth talk her way out of things with people who do not like her, and she finds that out the hard way a lot. Let's see. Next, oh my god, this is kind of slay of me to put this here. He has Venus in Capricorn third house. He is such a protector. Venus in Capricorn gives such protector vibes. I would also say like Venus in Aries, Venus in Scorpio. They all kind of like, there's a lot of placements that will give protector vibes. But Capricorn is one of them. He loves his mom and he loves Lyra. And he shows that love to them both by doing his best to protect them. He thinks that him leaving, maybe he doesn't think this, maybe he convinces himself that leaving his mom and searching for his dad is the best way to protect her and him. If he just leaves, there's no one to take him away from her. And he set her up with the neighbor to take care of her. So he thinks that he's doing the best that he can because he loves her. This is like fierce Saturnian Martian energy in the way that he shows his love. This is also applicable to his dad when he finds his dad, because his dad is like kind of like sickly, right? From going through all the dimensions, going through all the portals all the time. But there's also with Venus and Capricorn, especially in the third house where you have Jupiter and the Sun and Neptune, and none of it is really that great. But there's something about him having a hard time expressing like anything and everything except how much he cares for certain people. When he cares for somebody, it's very obvious to everybody. Everybody is like seeing his interactions with somebody and going, oh, Will cares for that person. He does not act that way with people he does not care about. He'll never say it. It's just like in his I mean, he will say it, but it's like mostly in his mannerisms and behaviors is how he expresses it. He is kind of the trope of the guy who's like stoic and quiet mostly and has a hard time expressing his feelings. But like when his love is questioned, he will not stop gushing about it. You know what I mean? That's kind of what Will is giving. Um, he's not a talker though. He's not. Yeah, and then we have his son once again. Um, Sun in the Capricorn third house. This is the placement that really kind of gets me thinking like, oh, he's saving face with all of his neighbors and stuff because of the way that his mom is. Like, Capricorns are all little businessmen. Capricorns are all little businessmen that just haven't grown up yet. Capricorn is the equivalent of seeing a baby named Steve and you're like, that baby should have a 401k. What's he doing? His name is not Steve. What? It's kind of that energy is what Capricorn gives. And so I can see him utilizing that energy to his advantage. Um, and making himself seem very mature, very grown up, so nobody cares about the state of affairs of his home. And that everybody just kind of believes his white lies about how good things are and whatnot. He is also cunning and clever. He's just not as cunning and clever as Lyra. Lyra can trick mythological creatures, divine beings, all of that. She can just speak and they believe her. Will can just convince his neighbors that things are okay at home. Okay, so that's the third house. We're gonna go into the fourth house now, which is in Aquarius. We're gonna start with his Mercury. So this is continuing the themes of the sun in the third house. Okay, his home life. Fourth house is your home life, internal world. It can represent your mother. It represents like the way you were raised, etc. So his home life, very untraditional. Aquarius is the most, maybe not the most, because Pisces is still right after it, but one of the most untraditional signs of the zodiac. With his Mercury here, I think that he tries to not communicate what his home life is like to other people, and that's where like the white lies come in. So it's really a lie by omission, He'll tell enough truth to like, be truthful, and then he'll follow it up with either not saying anything or giving a little white lie that makes things seem really okay and will placate people. It's like it's an alternative lifestyle thing, and he just vibes with it. He does, like, I think that it's really kind of scandalous to some of his neighbors that he doesn't have a dad. And so, and not even that he doesn't have a dad, but that his dad just like straight up left, disappeared. Nobody's seen him, heard of him ever since. And so, like, because his life is so untraditional, I think people are also like kind of afraid of asking questions, but they really want to ask questions because they're like, what the fuck is going on? And he just is so, I will not communicate with that with you because I don't need to. I don't want to. And if I do, you're going to take me away from my mom. Um, he also like utilizes his communication and his thinking skills to protect his mom. Aquarius is very big picture. Aquarius sees the whole image, and is very good at maintaining structure, it's a fixed sign even if it's air. So I think that like everything that he's learned in his upbringing, everything that he does is just a new way to protect his mom. I love that. We kind of stand a mama's boy here, okay? His next placement is Mars in Aquarius. Um, so this is his ruling planet, right? So he is ruled by the planet in his fourth house. He's ruled by the planet of action and ambition and drive and motivation. Mars is here to get shit done, okay? And arguably, Will has been getting shit done. Again, the little like Capricorn businessman paired with Aquarius fourth house, I feel kind of a little bit unstoppable, okay? Scorpio rising, he's kind of unstoppable. He is very action oriented, and I love that about him. Sometimes, he needs help with plans, and that's where Lyra comes in. But once a plan is set, he's doing the damn thing. I feel like that's why him and Iric um, get along really well, is because they're both kind of like very action oriented guys. One of them is a bear and one of them is a human, but you know what I mean. I think that he can very much have the mindset of like, oh, people don't want to change. Okay, then I'll just change the world so that they either fall behind or have to keep up. And again, I stand. I stand that, okay? I think that ambition, that like really big ambition like that, was always like there inside of him. And it's still, again, I want to say that it's still tangible, you know? It's still an ambition that is grounded in the real world. But I want to say that like uh massive like size of it was unlocked through meeting Lyra. I think that he could have activated that kind of enormity in his ambitions by himself, but we are human and we rely on others to help us grow and change, and I think that is relevant here. Um, with Aquarius as his Mars sign, he definitely is like, he's not foolhardy and he's not too quick to act. He has a much more tactical approach because, again, Aquarius can see the big picture. Now, the thing about Aquarius is that they can't always focus or see the details. And so there may be like little missteps like that. And sometimes when you miss a detail, it can make the whole thing fall apart. So that is definitely his like blind spot with this placement. This is also because it's a fixed sign, it's very I'll take care of me and mine by myself energy. Like, he's not even relying on the people that he's taking care of to also pull their weight. It's very much like, no, you are under my wing, so I will take care of you and I will take care of myself, and you don't have to take care of yourself or me. Like, it's like very like guarded, but like still letting you in. Like, you got past the like bridge troll and the fucking moat around the castle, but there's still like a maze that you have to get through to get close to him, to allow him to allow you to take care of him. He's mixed up. I relate heavily. Speaking of relating, are any of these placements mine? No, they're not. No, they're not. No tallies this episode, you guys. No tallies. Okay, so that brings us to his last placement, which is his Chiron in Gemini 8th house. Oh, I'm lying. We have two more placements. It's this one, and we circle back to his moon, and I'm going to talk about what his moon means in that house, the house that it's in. Okay, so second to last placement, Chiron in Gemini 8th house. The 8th house is traditionally ruled by the planet Pluto, right? And we know Pluto's in the 4th house, in the first house, and the house that's ruled by Pluto now has Chiron in it, which is also a not super fun placement. Kind of tragic, right? And it's in Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Gemini is all about communication and sharing information and knowledge, etc., etc. He is so bad at it. He struggles with it so much. I feel like I can count on one hand how many times he spoke to somebody in the first few chapters he's in. I think this is why I relate to him, right? Because I very much also feel like if I didn't have to talk, I wouldn't. I really relate to Psyche K, from The Disastrous Life of Psyche K. Kusuo. Yeah, I really relate to him because he does not speak, he just telepathically communicates and never opens his mouth. And something about that is so appealing to me, and I think that Will Perry would also feel that way. And I think that this placement is where he holds all of the fear of speaking out about his life because he's scared about getting taken away from his parent. I really understand that fear. Um, the fear of like, if I talk about this, I'm gonna get taken away from the only person I love and trust. And he also bears the knowledge, Gemini, of knowing that his mom, like, it's not his mom's fault. She has taken care of him in the past and would continue to do so if she wasn't sick. So it's very sad, very tragic. Um, but I think in a way also brings us to the last placement, which is his moon in Cancer, ninth house. Again, he loves his mom. He loves, loves, loves his mom. And he'll take care of her for as long as he needs to. And in the ninth house is the house of, it is the house of higher education and world philosophy. And, it's the house where we start to get into those like bigger than myself ideas. And I think that his mom is very encouraging of a positive lifestyle despite all of the hardships that they've been through. And so he's a very hardened young man, but at the same time, he, I think, wishes for softness. And his ruling planet may be Mars, but I think that his Cancer moon really emulates the teddy bear core that he has, um, and why he is capable of loving the people in his life as much as he does. And, Cancer is not unlike Scorpio. They're both water signs, they're different modalities. People always think Scorpio is the loyal one, Scorpio is hardened, Scorpio isn't sensitive, etc., etc., etc. But I think some of those impressions are kind of flip flopped. Cancer is also very loyal. Cancer is not as sensitive as people think it is. Um, and it like cancers are of course very soft hearted and they have a lot of love to give. Um, but sometimes they are quicker to like enact revenge than you would think. Um, so to me, like Will having a Cancer moon doesn't make him immediately as soft as some people might think. Um, Also, to me, relevant that it's in the ninth house just after the eighth house, where there's a lot of like trauma and walls put up. So like his heart, his moon lives in the ninth house, right past the eighth house doors. And I think that's very sweet and symbolic of how open hearted he can be once he trusts you. And with that, we've reached the end of the episode. As a reminder, you can find everything related to Astrofic and me in the link tree in the show notes, including my Etsy shop where I sell tarot readings. And if you have something you'd really like to add to the conversation, I'd love it if you left a voice note. They're about a minute long, and who knows, maybe I'll include your note in a future episode. Don't forget to leave a rating and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and tell your friends about me. You've been listening to Astrofic, your favorite astrology podcast, hosted by me, Celeste V. Don't forget to leave a rating and review, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.